Hello, my name is Alison Kennedy, and today I am going to show you how I built the Olympic medals Power BI report. Now this is a report that we do in the Power BI Essential Skills course, but I am going to change it up a little bit for this blog post, and in the course we normally use Wikipedia data that's already nicely formatted for us into one table. But today I'm going to show you how to get the data direct from the Olympic Games website. So you'll see here that I've gone to olympics.com and I'm looking at the Olympic Games tab. And if we scroll down here, it says that we can relive the past games. And it's got a list of all of the past games in here. And this data is actually going to come through into Power BI as a nicely formatted HTML table. So that's great. That's step one. That gives me a list of all of the Olympic Games. Step two is getting the results. So if I click into one of these past Olympic Games, you'll see that it gives me this URL up here. And we'll give it a minute to load. We've got the medal table here, so you can see the list of teams and the medals won by each. So we've got featured athletes, medals. Maybe I should just click on that medal table. So you'll see that the URL has now changed. And so it's now got my original root URL of the Olympic Games, plus the location and the year, and then followed by medals. And here I've got a list of all of the medals that were won by each team. Awesome. All right, so we are going to keep that as a reference point. I'm going to copy this root URL again, and I just want to show you a couple of other things. So this is a technique that you could use and apply to any other industry if you're needing to scrape the web, if you're wanting to get reviews from TripAdvisor and see what people are saying about you, if you're wanting to get reviews from any normal site, if you're wanting to scrape a website for prices. This is a technique that might be helpful to you if you can find some patterns in the URLs. So going back to this root website, I want to look for some of these other Olympic Games. So you'll notice Salt Lake City has spaces in it. And if we expand this out further, we've got some other ones with special characters. For example, this one here. So I want to know what is the URL when there's a space or when there's a special character. So we'll see when we click into that one, the URL replaces the space with a hyphen and replaces the special character with a hyphen as well. So I'm going to need to tell Power BI to do that in order to get to this site here, and then we'll just tack on the /medals at the end, and that will take us directly to that medals table, which is ultimately, this is the data that we want. So we want to stack all of these medal tables for all of these different Olympic Games across on top of each other. But there's about 30 of those, so I'm not going to waste my time going into this website and grabbing all of those tables. I'm going to let Power BI do the work for me. All right, so we'll start with this root URL. Remember that has the list of all of the different games, and I'll get that loading up while we go into Power BI. So in Power BI, we are going to get data from the web. I will paste the URL here. And this is going to go scrape that website, and it's going to return all of the tables that it can find, including that one that has the list of all of the Olympic Games and the years and the season. Now there is a lot of content on this site, so it might take a minute for it to load, but keep in mind there's over 30 pages that we want to get data from, and ultimately you can go and multitask, do something else while Power BI is thinking, and this is going to be faster than you going into each of those individual tables and grabbing that information. This table here, this site here is a little bit too volatile, and the relive past games only appears once I've been on the page for a minute, so we're not picking that up in Power BI. So what we'll do is we'll go to the results and medals, and now you'll see that we've got the Olympic results in the URL. And here we've got this beautiful table of all of the Olympic Games, and that includes all of those special characters and spaces that we discussed earlier. So we're going to grab this URL and put that into Power BI. And this page is loading a little bit faster, and because it's not the home page, it's less volatile and will have more reliable information for us. Now keep in mind it is a live web, so if you connect to this tomorrow, you might see different results than what I'm seeing today. So let's see what these tables look like. There we go, that's a beautiful table. That's got all of my Olympic Games, what season they are. We've got those special characters that we need to clean up, but we've got the basis of the information that we need. So I'm going to take table 1 and transform the data and pull that in to the Power Query editor. Perfect. So in here, I've got a list of my Olympic Games, and the first thing I'm going to do is add an index column to give a unique identifier to each one of these games. Now I'm going to start cleaning up to get that URL part that we need in order to get the medal results from each one of these games. So what I will do is I will start by splitting this column, and I'm going to do it by number of characters, because I know that every year has exactly 4 characters, and I know that some of these have spaces. There's no other way that I can split that. So I'm going to split by 4 characters once, as far right as possible. Cool. So that gives me my year, and it gives me my location. Now we will notice that there is a space after the location here. So I am going to transform this column and trim to get rid of that space at the end. Alright, so we'll rename these. This is location, This one's year. And now I'm going to start adding that URL column. So I know that we need to take the location and the year in the URL, and we're going to merge those as a new column. So I've done that from the Add Column tab. Separator, I need to be that hyphen. So I'm going to choose Custom, and we'll call this the URL part. Alright, that's looking close for these, but remember we need to replace that space, and we need to replace that special character with another hyphen. That's easy. In Power Query, we'll just select the URL part column. From the Transform tab, we'll do a Replace Values, search for a space, replace with a hyphen, do that again, search for that guy there, replace with a hyphen, that's fixed that one. And then the last one that we need to fix is the full stop here. We're just going to get rid of that one because there's already a hyphen there, so we don't need two hyphens. So we'll replace the full stop with nothing. Cool. So that URL part is looking fairly good. The last thing that we are going to do is format that so that it's all lowercase. And add medals to the end. Alright, we'd better save this file now. And apply later. Excellent. So this table is going to become our Olympic results. And now what we need to do is go back to our web page, and we need to have a look at this bit here, and we're going to pull through this information. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to create a custom function in Power Query without using any coding. So we'll go back to our Power Query page, and we are going to start by creating what's called a parameter. So the parameter is going to tell Power Query which page or which URL we want it to look at. So we've generated this URL part, so we need to create a parameter that provides that URL part to Power Query. So I'm going to call this parameter URL part. It is a text value, and the current value, we're going to start with that first one. So the current value will be that. So that will create a new parameter over here for us. Notice parameters are in italics, they're not loaded into your model, which is great. And now I'm going to do a new source from web. And when this opens, I'm going to choose the advanced. And notice that this allows me to provide URL parts. So it can contain a fixed subset of the URL or reference a parameter. So I'm going to paste the full URL in there, but this bit I've already provided as the parameter, so I'm going to get rid of that and choose a parameter and that URL part. Okay, so you'll see that the preview is going to be the Olympic Games, and then it's going to put that URL part after it. And click OK. So this is going to go to the web page for that specific Olympic Games. It's going to replace the URL part with this value here, and we'll be able to find the table that has the list of all of the medals results by team. Alright, so here I can see the list of the team names. I've got some results in here. The columns aren't very well labeled, so I'm going to have to refer back to my web page to see what each of these columns means, but that's the table that I'm looking for. So we're going to select that one and click OK. We'll rename this and call this the sample results table. And you'll see that we've got the team name in here twice. I don't need that. And then I've got a few columns that I'm not sure what they relate to. So I am going to pull this down and compare it to this web page here. Right. So we've got the team code, the team name. This number 3 here is the total number of medals. I don't need that. We've got the team name repeated again, and then it's ordered the number of medals here in a different order than what I've got on the website. So this is indeed gold. So we'll rename that to gold. I can see Australia had no gold medals in that Olympic Games, but the second one here is bronze. And then finally, it's giving me silver. We'll just pick these first two, so we'll just call that team code. Oops. And team. And then I'm going to choose only those specific columns that I need. Voila. So now my sample results table is looking pretty good. I just need to repeat that over 30 times for each one of the Olympic Games. Here's where the cool part comes in. I'm now going to create a custom function without doing any coding at all. So all I need to do is right-click here on the sample results table and create function. because I'm using a parameter in this source step, Power Query recognizes that this function has one parameter for it. And I'm going to call this get medal results. So that packages up my sample results table, my parameter, and my function into the get medal results. I am now going to right click on my sample results table and untick the enable load so that that does not get loaded into my report. Instead, we'll come to the Olympic results table here, and I'm now going to tell Power Query to change the value of the parameter to be whatever we've got here in this URL part and go and get the results from all 102 web pages. How cool is that? Alright, so add column, invoke custom function. You'll see that Power Query is going to let us create a new column. So we'll call this medal results. And the function we're going to use is that function that we've just created here. And it lets us choose which column is going to be the value of the parameter. It's automatically guessed it correctly. Click OK. Now, mind you, this step might take a while. Power Query is actually going to go to 100 web pages and pull that information from each one of those pages. It's going to follow all of those steps that we've got in the sample results table. So it's going to rename the columns, get rid of the other columns, and then it's going to package that up as a table and put it here for us. So be patient, let that do its thing, go away and do something else for a minute. Okay, that didn't take as long as I thought it would. I've done this previously, so some of the data might be cached in my computer. You can see that I've already got the results here. So here I've got all of the tables that we were looking for, and it's got all of the data. We can click on another one and we can see that it's giving me the information for gold, bronze, and silver for each of the different teams. If we spot check one of these, Salt Lake City, gold, bronze, and silver, Australia got 2 gold medals. And let's go have a look back at our web page. So if we go back to this one, Salt Lake City, go to the medal table. Australia got 2 gold, no silver, no bronze. Austria had 3 gold, 10 bronze, and 4 silver. 3 gold, 10 bronze, and 4 silver. Perfect. So it's working. Okie dokie. So our next step is just getting it into a nice data model format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference this query. And I'm going to call this the Olympic Games. And we'll rename the Olympic results to Olympic results base. And we will reference that again. And we'll call this one the Olympic results. Now I'm just using this as a reference. I don't need that anymore, so we'll untick the enable load on there. Okay, so once we've got the Olympic results base, for this one, we just need the Olympic Games information. So what I'm going to do here is actually want to rename that column. We'll do that back in the base. And we'll go back up to where we renamed columns. Keep it nice and tidy. And we'll call that season. You guys have to keep me on my toes, make sure I'm not missing any steps. Nice thing about Power Query is that it's really easy to go back and fix your mistakes, and you've got this visibility of everything that you've done over here, so that's fantastic. All right, so that will carry through to my Olympic Games. Voila, so we've got that season column renamed in all three of these queries. So over here, what I'm trying to get is just a dimension table of my Olympic Games. So I don't need the medal results. I only need these other columns here. So I will remove this column. And instead of having the URL part, it might be kind of handy to have the entire URL. So what I'm going to do is grab this bit here and insert that as a prefix. And then we'll rename this to URL. Now, the fun bit. We're going to take the Olympic results table, so I'm going to come back over here to my Olympic results, and we're going to expand out all of those results. So from the medal results, we already have the name of the Olympic Games, but what we need is the team code, the team gold, the silver, bronze. So we need all of that information. Click OK. How beautiful is that? So cool. All right. Now, data type. Data type is always very, very important in Power Query. And we also need another dimension table of our teams. So what I might actually do on we'll just finish this. So we'll continue with the results. So this gives us the team code, the team name, and it gives us gold, silver, bronze. This is already in a report layout, a report format. What I want is I want a column for the medal type and a column for the total number of medals, or the medal count. So I want to take the gold, silver, bronze and unpivot them. This is one of the most common questions that I get. People having data that doesn't come in a nice flat format and not sure how to work with it. DAX, Power BI, they don't work well on column formulas, column functions, when you're trying to do something between multiple columns. It works better having all of this information in one column so that we can do the filtering based on the attribute rather than having to filter which columns do you want to include in the average or in the total. It's just too complicated. It's not the way that DAX is designed. So what we want to do is unpivot that. In here, I am going to unpivot only the selected columns, and that will ensure that only gold, bronze, and silver are included in the formula bar in the code. And so that means that if this gets any columns added to it later, we're still going to end up with an attribute of gold, bronze, and silver only. I'm going to rename that and call that medal type. Note I'm renaming it in the formula bar, but you could do it in the column headings themselves. The value we're going to call medal count. All right, data type, super important. So these two need to be text. And this medal count needs to be a numeric, and you'll note that we've got some hyphens that are going to get in the way. So I'm going to do something a little bit controversial, and I'm going to set this data type to a whole number. And then I'm going to take these errors and in the Home tab, remove errors. Do be careful with that, as it does get rid of the data. And if you're not certain why that error was there, if you're not sure that you've done everything perfectly, you might be removing data that you actually need. But I'm comfortable with what we've done. I know where those errors are coming from, and I know we don't need them. So we've now got my Olympic Games, my Olympic results. That's going to be my fact table that tells me how many medals everyone has achieved. I need 2 more dimension tables. So here I've got gold, silver, and bronze. I'm just going to quickly enter a new table. And this one is going to help me sort them so that I don't have that same problem with the missorting that we had when the tables came through from the web. So we're going to do medal type, medal sort, 1, silver, bronze, go back up and stick gold in there, and then 2 and 3. And we'll call this Olympic medals. This next step, I'm going to do a dimension table for the teams. Now, in a perfect world, I would already have this dimension table. Would know who the teams are that are participating in the Olympics. You've got a list of your customers, your clients, your products. But we don't always have that. For example, if you're collecting survey information from respondents, you've got an unpivoted at all, you've got that replicated. So we need to get a unique list of all of the teams that are participating in the Olympics. So I am going to reference my Olympic results table. And we'll call this one Olympic teams. And here, all I need is the team code and the team name. So I am going to select just those two columns. Notice I've done 3 different methods for selecting columns. The first time I used the choose columns button. With one of my other tables, I just selected the one column I didn't want and removed it. With this one, I selected the 2 and then I did remove other columns. Different methods, they'll have different codes in the formula bar. So this is actually giving me the same result as if I had done choose columns. It's just a different method that I did it. If you're removing columns, you'll notice that the formula bar references the columns you want to get rid of. Because I've done a select column, the formula bar references the columns I want to keep. That is an important difference and something that you need to consider about how your data is evolving and changing and how reliable your data source is. Here we've got a list of our teams. We want to make sure that the team code is unique, so I am going to remove the duplicates on that column, and that will just give me the 130 odd teams that have participated in the Olympic Games over the history since we've been keeping records. $151 teams. And that's it. That is my base data model. So now I'm ready to close and apply. We'll save this one more time. So I'm just going to do a quick save, apply later. And then I will close and apply, and we'll look at our data model. Okay, so I let that apply the changes, and it took a while at the beginning, but then magically, all of a sudden, it was done. So you'll see over here we've got our 4 Olympic tables. And whenever you get new data into Power BI, we always start at the foundation, building from the model view. So I'm going to come into the model view and check that we've got all the relationships we need. So this is a beautiful star schema. We've got our Olympic results fact table in the middle. This is what we want to know. How many medals have each team won? And then along the outside, what do we want to split it by? Do we want to split it by the Olympic Games, by the team, by the type of medal, how many gold, silver, bronze? Okay, and each of these is the one-to-many. I am just going to collapse this fact table here, and each of these columns that are being used for the relationships, I am going to hide them. So I'm going to come over here and say, is hidden? Yes. So that's going to force me to use the value from the dimension table rather than from the fact table when I'm using it in visualizations. Okay, so now what we can do is go into our report and start visualizing stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is nice and simple. We're going to take the Olympic results And this medal count here, I am going to create a new measure. And we're going to call this total medals. And that's going to be equal to the sum of the medal count from the results table. Now I want to know the total medals and I want to know that by team. I actually don't need team, year, location. I actually don't need any of that in my results table. I should remove that from Power Query. But for now, we're just going to go into here and from the results table, the team, the season, the location, the URL part, and the year. Those are all in other tables. So you'll see the Olympic Games table has the location, the season, the URL, and the year, and the Olympic teams table has the team. So I don't need any of those in the results table. I want to be using the dimension table for those. I am also now going to hide the medal count because I have created an explicit measure for it using DAX. So what that will do, when I go back to my report, that's going to put the Olympic results at the top, changes the icon, because now this only has measures in it. So I want to see my total medals as a bar chart by team. Go USA, we've got the most medals of any team. And we are going to split that further by the type of medal. Hard to see what the total is, so we're going to stack that. Pretty cool. But bronze, gold, silver are in the wrong order again. We were prepared for this. So I can take the medal type and sort it. And then I can give these beautiful colors, and I might speed this part up. Alright, this is pretty cool. We can quickly add some slicers in. I'll do that now as well. Now, I do not like the default slicer settings. I prefer to make it easy for Excel users. So I turn that off and that on, and this turns it into more of an Excel world where you don't need to use the control key to select multiple items. Because there's only a few, you might not need the select all option on here. Up to you. However you prefer, however you think that looks cleaner. Okay. But we have the select all in Excel, so we're used to that. So up to you. Once you've got those settings that you like, you could actually just copy that slicer. And we can do the same thing again for the Olympic Games, this time for season. And I don't want the medal type in there. Lastly, we'll do a slicer for year. Now these tend to take up a lot of space. You can see that I've already lost my year heading. So another trick that I like to do with slicers is under general. You can make them not responsive, and that allows you to cram it into a slightly smaller space for you. Okay, so we know who's got the most medals, but what we want to look at now is this challenge of creating measures that are coming from a table that is not the fact table. So I want to know from all of these medals, how many Olympic Games have these teams won medals in? So this gets a little bit trickier. For this one, we need to count the total number of games. So that's in this dimension table here. But I still want to be able to split that by team and by medal type, gold, silver, bronze, by season, all of the above. So in order, I'll go back to my relationship view here. If I count the total number of games, so I could count the index in here, that will filter this table, my results, but it doesn't filter the medal type. Now likewise, if I pick a specific team, that filters the results, but it doesn't filter the Olympic Games. So if I pick a specific team and I want to know how many games they've participated in, I need to use this fact table as my basis for that calculation. And I need to take that and use it as the glue that binds everything together. So what I'll do for this calculation is I'm going to create a new measure and I'll put it in the fact table because that's the glue, that's the bind. So I'm going to create a new measure and I'll start by doing it incorrectly so that you can see why that's a problem. So total Olympic Games is just count rows of the Olympic Games table. Easy. So if I do the total Olympic Games as a new visual, that's fine, we get 102. But if I now split that by season, that's fine, right? Summer and winter, because that's in the same table as my Olympic Games. However, if I try and split that by medal type, that's probably correct. We've probably had gold, silver, and bronze at all of the Olympic Games. Okay, I could believe that. But let's now try and split it by team. Now this, I don't believe. This is telling me that every single team has won medals in all 102 of these Olympic Games. And I can tell you that the German Democratic Republic, Germany, has not won medals in 102 games as well as Germany itself. as well as East and West Germany, Soviet Union. Everything in here has the same number of total Olympic Games, and that is not correct. Now again, this is because of the relationships here. So I've done a count rows on this table. That table always has 102 rows. Even though I've filtered the teams table, you'll see that that arrow comes down here. It filters my Olympic results. But my Olympic results is not filtering my Olympic Games. There's two ways to solve this. The right way and the wrong way. The wrong way, and what I see a lot of people doing, is they'll come in here and say, well, fine, I want Olympic results to filter Olympic Games. So I'm going to set this so that the arrow points in that direction. Set the cross-filter direction to both. Sweet as. So with the cross-filter direction set to both, my Olympic results now lets my filter go through to the Olympic Games. If I go back, you'll see, okay, makes a bit more sense. Finland has been around for a while. They've won medals in 96 of those 102 games. Okay, New Zealand, we've won medals in 46 of those games. The United States, 96. Okay, we get down into some of the other countries, it gets a little bit lower. So that's working. It's correct. However, what it does is it introduces ambiguity into your data model. And if we set cross-filter direction to both on all of our relationships, we're going to end up with some incorrect calculations that are very hard to spot. There's a time and a place for cross-filter both direction, but it is not here. Okay, and this is an advanced modeling technique that you should not use just to solve this simple problem. So we're going to set that back to single, and instead we'll use DAX to solve our problem. So with that set back to single, my visualization is not working again. So what we need to do is we need to take this total Olympic Games measure and we need to give it context of my fact table of the Olympic results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter the Olympic Games table within the DAX measure. And you can use any measure that makes sense. We're doing total medals here. You could make that be total sales, total projects, total quantity. But if the total medals is greater than 0, then count the Olympic game. So what that does is it says if Afghanistan has won some medals in that Olympic Games, then count them. Otherwise, don't count the rows for that Olympic Games. So that is going to cause this filter from team to filter the results table, which will change the value of my total medals, which will then filter the Olympic Games total table because I've put that into my DAX measure. And you'll see that we're now back to the same results that we've got with the cross-filter both direction, but it keeps my data model intact. It keeps that nice star schema, single cross-filter direction, all roads point to the fact table. Okay, so we want all the arrows pointing to the fact table, single cross-filter direction, one-to-many, a nice beautiful star schema. So this is a good technique for working with measures that calculate or aggregate values that are not in your fact table. And we often see this with pricing. You can see it here with counting the total number of games, counting active customers, lots of examples, so you can pull this out to whatever scenario or whatever data you're working with and get this to aggregate the values properly for you. And that's all I've got for now. So enjoy the Olympics. Keep an eye on my blog. I'm going to be continuing to analyze the Olympic results. Hopefully you've enjoyed seeing how to crawl web pages using Power Query custom functions, how to handle different levels of granularity, measures that aren't in your fact tables, keep an eye on the Tokyo 2020 Olympic results. As the results come through, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be continuing to crawl these web pages. I'm going to come into the schedules and results and do some analysis on these values here. So if we look at our medals again, we'll be able to see all of the medalists and be able to rank these not only by team, but because we're in the midst of the Tokyo 2020, we can actually come in here and do it by the individual person and event as well, which is going to be very exciting. Lots of fun data to work with there. We can see whether it's women or men. This is actually the first Olympics that's got 49% female, and that's up from 45% in the previous Olympics. So lots of new events and things to keep your eye on. We can see which countries perform better in which events and keep an eye on who are the big players this year. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the fun little activity, a break from work data, but still transferable skills. So let me know in the comments any questions or how you found it, and see you again for the next one.